Hi and welcome back to module number 13, and this module is about building decoupled architecture. So it's a guided lab for module number 13 where we'll be talking about building a decoupled application by using Amazon SQS. I'll go through the contents of it in a while, but seems like pretty lengthy lab as we covered last time on module number 11 as well. It has around about 7 tasks, 8 tasks, 9 tasks that we'll have to complete before we can reach the conclusion. So first, let's try to understand what we are doing in this lab. So we'll explore how to design applications that can continue to run smoothly even when different parts of the system work at their own pace. In other words, we learn how can we decouple applications components so they can communicate reliably without depending on each other's timings. So we'll have a hands-on experience on Amazon's simple queue service, which we call as SQS, a fully managed service for queuing services that lets you send, store, and receive messages between distributed systems. By the end of this lab, you'll be able to understand SQS help improving the scalability, fault tolerance, and reliability in cloud architectures. Further, you'll be able to create and configure the SQS queues, and you'll be able to integrate EC2 instances or Lambda functions to send and receive messages. And finally, it would show you how decoupled architectures support real-world use cases such as order processing, notifications, and workflow notifications, etc. Again, just to give you a heads up, for these kind of labs which are a bit lengthy, keep an eye on the time, and if you're running out of time, I would highly recommend to press start button so that it would reset the timer. Don't press the end button, otherwise it would reset your environment. So that's the phase one in building a tight coupled architecture. By the end of this phase, you'll be creating a environment like this one where we'll have an S3 bucket, an application server, a web server, and a DynamoDB. And they are explaining the process over here. And they are explaining the process about the steps which are involved in this one. So we'll start our phase number 1 by building a tight coupled application by installing the image processing application over here. So if you'll go up a little bit and if you'll see the phases that they are talking about. So phase number 1 is working with Node.js, and it's based on the application through AWS Cloud9. So we'll be working on IDE. And the components such as web server, application server are tightly coupled. So if we look at phase number 1, which talks about building a tight coupled application, we are installing the image processing and we'll be logging into AWS Cloud IDE environment. So to simplify it in this step, we'll start by logging into Cloud9 IDE, our development environment in the cloud. And then from Cloud9, it provides a ready-to-use workspace with AWS CLI pre-configured, so we can focus on building and testing the code without setting up the local machines. Now, after completing this step, we'll be ready to install and run our image processing application inside this cloud environment. So we are on our console and we are typing in Cloud9 over here and click on that one. Here we'll go on our phase 1 server and then open Cloud9. Next is we'll click on this Cloud9 icon and then we'll press Preferences. And in this one, we'll disable this option over here and then you can close this one. This will deactivate AWS managed credentials because you use the AWS identity and access management role, which is provisioned for this tab. So now we have completed 1.1. We are starting 1.2 for downloading files and installing the application. So we'll download the required source files from the lab repository and we'll install the image processing application. This would include fetching dependencies and verifying that the application runs correctly in Cloud9. After completing this step, we'll have a basic image processing system up and running, but it will still be tightly coupled to its components. So just like always, I'll copy these commands and I'll paste it on my notepad file. so that we can easily copy and paste it to the IDE environment. Next step is that we can close this one so that we have more space, and we'll keep it here. And we are going to paste the first command which is there in this tab, and then we'll open another terminal and we'll paste the other command that we copied from the instructions manual over here, new terminal, and I'm gonna paste that one and run it over here as well. So with that, we have just installed the Node.js module and the application, which has a web server and an application server. Next, we'll configure other services. Now we'll start working on task 1.3, which is for configuring the security group and IAM role. So we'll adjust the security groups to allow the necessary network access and attach an IAM role to grant permissions to the AWS services like S3, etc. This would ensure our instance can interact securely with the other resources. Once this step is done, our environment would be properly authorized for communication with S3 and other AWS services. So we'll be going to instances on our EC2, and then we'll follow these things as the instructions are saying, and we'll make sure that we are having a port range from 8000 to 8100, and then we'll attach the IAM role over there with a phase 2 server. Will be repeated exactly as we did earlier. Now let's go to EC2 instances, and I'll open it in a new tab so that we'll retain this one. And here, as you can see, that 2 instances are running. We'll click on this one. Next, we'll have to select phase 1 server. This is the one that they are talking about. And then they are saying to click on security tab. Then we'll click on the security groups over here. Then we'll click on edit inbound rules. And as you can see, after this one, they are saying to add a rule for custom TCP and have a range of 8000 to 8100, and it should be anywhere, and then save rules. So we'll add a rule custom TCP, its port range anywhere, and hit save rules. Next, they are saying go back to instances and again select your phase 1 server again. Then click on details and copy the public IP4 address from here. Once copied, you can keep it somewhere in a notepad file because we are going to use it sometime later. Next, we'll click on actions, and then we'll select security, and we'll select modify IAM role. And in this one, select EC2 instance profile, select this one and update IAM rule. Now we are going to repeat the same steps for our phase 2 server as well. So select your phase 2, go to security, go to security groups, and now we'll edit inbound rules. We'll add a rule. After that, save rule. Once that's done, we'll go back to our instances and we'll keep the second one selected, but this time we would go to details and we'll copy this IP address also on a notepad file. Now we have completed 1.3. We are going to start 1.4, and 1.4 is about configuring the S3 bucket permissions. So we'll configure the permissions for the S3 bucket where our image will be stored and processed. This step defines who can upload or download or read files in S3. After completing this step, our application will have direct access to S3 bucket for images input and output. We'll be maintaining a tightly coupled setup between the Cloud9 and S3. As you can see, we'll be going to buckets, and we'll go to the permissions and stuff, and then we'll add a policy, and then we'll have to replace the bucket ARN number and then save the changes. So now we'll go to S3 buckets. Here also we'll select the phase 1 bucket. Next, they are saying go to permissions tab, So we'll be modifying the settings for block public access bucket settings. For that, click on Edit Settings. Click uncheck over here, Save Changes. It would ask you to type in confirm. You can paste it over here and then click confirm. After that, we'll have to add the bucket policy to this one. So we have bucket policy here, and in order to enter the bucket policy, we'll click Edit and we'll have to paste the bucket policy. Now they're saying to copy this policy from here, but we'll have to make a change here where it's asking for bucket ARN, and bucket ARN will be displayed in that window. So we'll have to replace the bucket ARN and replace the IP address with the IP address that we'll see in a while. So now let's paste the policy here that we copied from the instructions manual, and as you can see that it is asking us that we'll have to change these two things here. So ARN for the bucket would be copied from here, and we'll replace it over here by pasting the ARN number. The second thing is they are asking about the server IP address. And in order to get the server IP address, remember we copied the information about our phase 1 and phase 2 servers. So I'm gonna copy it from here, and I'll replace the IP address over here with the IP address of our phase 1 server. After that, we'll just hit Save Changes. So these were the settings which were required for the bucket policy. Just make sure that it should not show you any sort of error messages over here. So you'll go back to the buckets and you'll be able to see it for your bucket for the phase number 1. We have set it up the permissions for that one, and you can see the source IP address and stuff like that over here. Now we'll start 1.5, and in 1.5 we'll configure and start the application. So we'll set the environment variables and start the image processing application so that it monitors the S3 bucket for new uploads. Once started, the app will automatically process images as soon as they are added to the bucket. And after completing this step, we'll have a fully functional but tightly coupled image processing workflow where all components depends directly on one another. So here they are giving some details of the web server and how we'll be accessing it, and we'll have to make certain changes on our IDE environment, and then we'll save and close it, and we'll again make some changes to the IDE just to make sure that we are able to run this application. So let's start it step by step. So they're saying go to your IDE environment, then look on your left hand side. We'll click on on phase number 1, then we'll select on web server 1, and we'll select the static in this one, and then we'll click on JS, and then we'll click on config JS, which is this file. Now since we were working on the CLI, we'll move it down so that we can see the configuration on our config.js. So here they are saying to replace the brackets and the IP addresses of our phase 1 server. Now if you remember that we copied the IP address over here for our phase 1 server, so we'll have to replace the entire string including the brackets with the IP address. So in order to do that, you can click on find and click on replace. So a bar would open here. So first of all, we'll type in the IP address, and then since we need to remove this thing up to here, we'll copy it, we'll paste it here, and then we'll say replace all. So it has replaced the IP addresses over here. Make sure to save the file whenever you're making any changes to it. Now if you'll notice another thing, they are asking us to replace this thing as well. Now we'll have to go to our S3 bucket and copy the details from there. So this is our S3. If you'll go to buckets, just to confirm, we are working on phase 1. So I'll click on phase 1 bucket, and in order to know the bucket name we'll copy it all the way from here, and then we'll go back to our IDE environment, and here we'll replace the phase 1 bucket with the address of the bucket. Just make sure there are no spaces after that one, and then hit save. Now once that's saved, that's it as far as the configuration was concerned, so we can close this one. So we followed up to here. Now they are saying to open IDE, go to web server, libs, and config.js. So we'll be working on this one, and we'll be changing some IP addresses and bucket names here as well. So now this time they are asking us to open another file. So as they told us that we'll have to go to web server 1, and then we have opened web server 1 already. Then they are saying to go to libs, and then here we'll have to open config.js. Here also they are asking us to replace this IP address of our phase 1 server. So I'll open my phase 1 server and copy its IP address from here, and I'm gonna replace it with including the brackets, save it. The other thing is they are saying to update the bucket 1 details also. So last time when we entered the details, I copied it on my notepad file, and I'm gonna replace this one also over here with your phase 1 bucket details. Make sure there are no spaces here, and save the file. After that they're saying that we can close this one also, and this time they are saying to go to app server. So be very careful over here. Make sure that you'll open the app server, then we'll go to libraries, and in this one we are going to click on config.js. Here also they are asking us to change this phase 1 bucket. So we'll copy the same address that we copied earlier, and we are going to replace this one with this. Click save. So we finished this step also. Now they're saying you can close it, and then they are saying that we can now open phase 1 web server 1. So now we can close this one, and then you'll go to the terminal window of your phase 1 server, and then we'll have to run a command separately on our web server, as you can see here, and on our app server, which is over here. So first of all, we'll paste the command npm start on our web server, and then we are going to paste the same command on our app server and press enter. Now here, as you can see, that this app is listening on this port, whereas on our app server we are listening on port number 8009. So let's start working towards testing the application on task number 2. They are saying to test the application, we can enter the IP address of our phase 1 EC2 instance, which is this IP address. So we'll be entering it in the browser with the colon at 8008, and we'll try to see that if it's loading the website or not. And as you can see that it has successfully loaded image tinter. So they're saying to check the images also and try to upload them. They'll be resized to 300 by 300, and it should be PNG only. So look for any pictures that you have on your computer which you can upload it over here. So I have selected an image, and if I'll click submit, it would upload it and it would start processing it. And as you can see, it's processing the image and it is trying to load over here. Now if I'll select another image, it is processing that as well. And now I can click on start checking images. So it is checking, and if you want to stop, you can click on stop checking the images. And if you want to delete these images, you can click on this delete and it would disappear. But before I'll delete the images, if I'll go back to my S3 bucket, and if you'll refresh this page, you'll be able to see these 4 images which we recently tested it on our application. So if I'll come here and if I'll delete one image from here, we shall be able to see a change over here as well. So let's delete both images and now go back, and if I'll refresh my bucket, you can see that the images disappeared from here as well. Now we'll start phase number 2, which is building the application with decoupled architecture. So in this one, we'll be installing the application and then we'll be logging into AWS Cloud I9. So just like before, we'll start by logging back to our IDE environment. This ensures that we are working from a clean and consistent setup. So after this setup, we'll be ready to rebuild our application using new messaging architecture. So for this one, we'll go back to our Cloud9, and this time we'll click on phase 2 server IDE. Once we are here, just like earlier, we'll click on this thing and click on preferences, and after that we'll go to this one and disable it again. After that you can close it. Exactly like as we did earlier, we are going to run the code again, and for that we'll be working on downloading files and installing it to the application. So we'll download new version of the image processing app that supports image-based communication. So after installing, we'll verify that all dependencies are met and ready for integration with SQS and SNS. So we'll be copying this thing from here and we'll run it on our IDE environment. And once you are here, just paste it and press enter. Make sure you're working on your phase 2 server. Then we'll open a new terminal window and we'll copy this command and we'll run it over there. And we'll paste it here, press enter. And just like before, now it has set it up in app server 2, and here we have web server 2. Next, they are saying to go to your EC2 instances and go to phase 2 server and then click on details and copy the IP address of that one as well. So we are on our EC2, and now we'll select our EC2 instance over here, and then they're saying to copy the IP address of it, but we already have an IP address of that one, which is pasted on our notepad file. So now we'll start our task number 4, and task number 4 says configure your Amazon SQS. So we'll create and configure the Amazon Simple Queue service. The queue will act as a buffer between image upload and processing service, ensuring that messages are delivered reliably even if one part of the system is temporarily unavailable. Once we'll complete this step, our application will have a message queue ready to handle asynchronous communications. So we'll search for SQS console and we'll copy the name from here. And let's search for SQS and click on that one. After that, create a queue and we can name it as image app. And we are not making any other changes over here. We'll keep things as it is and we'll create a queue. Now we have task number 5, which is configuring Amazon SNS, which is Simple Notification Service. So we will set up a SNS service over here, and it would be responsible for publishing notifications when new images are uploaded to S3. And after completing this step, we'll have a communication channel ready to broadcast the messages to multiple subscribers, such as our SQS queue. So they're saying create a topic and name it as upload notification. And then we'll have to copy this JSON script and paste it on our JSON editor. But before we do anything, let me copy this URL also and paste it on our image app and keep record of it as image app. Maybe we'll need it later. After that, let's search for SNS and simple notification service. Open it on another tab. So we would have it over here. And here we'll type the topic name. And as they told us, just enter upload notification, press next. Now we'll scroll down, we'll go to access policy, we'll click advanced. Now we'll copy the details which are appearing here first. So we'll click and create another notepad file and we'll note down the details. Now the reason why we are doing it is that we have a source account over here and we have a resource address appearing here. Rest of the things would be changed or would be copied from the details that we copied earlier. But at the moment we are just keeping a record of that. And then I'll go back to my instructions manual and I'm gonna copy this file which we need to replace over there. And I'll place it right under this one so we have the details. Now as you can see that it's asking for the source account, so I'll copy it from here and I'm gonna paste it in this one. Further, it's asking for our phase 2 bucket details, but since we copied it earlier, I can get it from my notepad file and I'm gonna replace it over here. For your SNS topic ARN, you can also copy it from here. You can copy it from here and replace it with this one. Once that's done, I'm gonna copy now this policy which we have updated. Now you can check it again that we have the service name, we updated the resource address, then we updated the source ARN, and we updated the AWS source account. Once that's done, I'm gonna select it all and replace with the policy which I have just uploaded and then click create. So with that, we have provided the necessary permissions for our S3 bucket to send notifications. So you can configure phase 2 S3 bucket event notifications. Now we are going to start our task number 6. And in task number 6, as you can see, we'll be configuring Amazon S3 permissions and event notifications. So we'll configure our S3 bucket to trigger events. When new objects are added, these events will send messages to our SNS topics. So once we are done with this one, your S3 bucket will automatically notify SNS, which can then distribute messages to SQS and other subscribers. So as you can see in this one, we'll go to our S3 buckets and we'll click on permissions and we'll block the access and then edit and block all public access on this one. And then we are going to copy this policy over there. Before we'll move, I'll copy my SNS from here as well, just to keep a record of it on my notepad file. Now we'll go to our buckets and I'm gonna select phase 2 bucket, and in this one I'll go to permissions, I'll go to edit, I'll uncheck this thing, save changes. It would ask you to confirm. You can paste it over here, confirm. Now for the bucket policy, we'll edit it and we'll copy this script from here and we are going to paste it on our notepad file. In this one, they're saying to change the IP address. So we are going to change the IP address with the phase 2 server. So it would be replaced with this one. And for bucket ARN number, we'll go back to our S3 bucket and we can copy it from here and we can paste it by replacing this one, and then we'll copy it from here and we'll paste it here and then go down and save changes. So we did that. After that, they're saying go to the properties tab and create the events notifications. So we'll click on properties and we'll go down and we'll find the events notifications and click on create event notification. Enter the name as send to SNS. After that, scroll down, click on this one, and then there's another thing over here called SNS topic, and from SNS topic select upload notifications. After that, click save changes. Next step is about creating Amazon SNS subscription. So we'll connect the SNS queue to the SNS topic by creating the subscription. This will ensure that every new image upload event in S3 triggers a message that is passed along through SNS to SQS. Now we'll go back to our SQS and here we'll click on SNS subscriptions and then subscribe to Amazon SNS topic. Here we'll select the same ARN that we uploaded earlier, click save. So if we'll go back to our queues and we'll click on this one, you'll be able to see the details for the notifications, etc., which it's subscribed to at the moment. And if now you'll go to SNS and click on topics, you'll be able to see upload notifications here. We'll click on this one and then we'll click on create subscription. Under the protocol, we are going to select email. Enter the email address on which you want, enter the email address where you want to receive the notifications, and then create subscription. Now in task number 8, we'll configure the parameters and starting the application. So on Cloud9 environment, we'll see the app knows where to read the messages specifically from SQS queue instead of directly from S3. So once configured, we'll start the application again. And after this step, our image processing app will begin pulling the messages from SQS, allowing the asynchronous processing independent of uploading timings. So for that, we'll have to go back to our IDE environment. They're saying click on phase 2, then go to web server 2, then go to static, and under that click on JS and click on config.js. Now we'll be able to see some settings in this one just like we did earlier. We'll just replace the IP addresses here with our EC2 phase 2. So we'll enter them and replace all and change the bucket 2 here as well. Now they are saying go to web server 2 lives and then configure.js. In this one also we'll make the changes. So we changed the bucket 2 address. After that, we'll go to our app server, and in app server we are going to libs, and under that we are going to click on config.js, and in this one also we'll change the bucket address here, and we need to change the phase 2 SQS URL also, and we'll paste the phase 2 SQS URL here. Make sure that you have saved all files on which you are working. Now we'll go back to our IDE environment and we'll run the commands npm start, and we'll do the same on the application server as well, and we'll type npm start here as well. Now you can see that it's running on port 8010, whereas your web server is running on port 8007. Now just like we tested earlier, we'll enter the address of it with 8007 with our phase 2 server, and this website would load. And likewise, if you'll add the images to this one. You'll get notifications on your email addresses and stuff. So that's it for today for our lab on module number 13, which is building decoupled application using Amazon SQS. Thank you very much.